Well, happy November, everybody. Hope you guys are having a good one. Hope you're not suffering from a sugar crash if you
Oh,
celebrated
no.
Halloween last night. Um, Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we debunk myths and we talk Gundam and gaming. I am, of
That's right.
course, your host, Steven, Midnight Hatter, and joining me, as always, is the hatted Adam Blue. How are you doing, my
That's right.
friend?
No, yeah, I came in with the hat and not the white wig I was wearing yesterday,
The White
and I
Wig of
was
Rivia.
okay, that's one, and then the other one was a guy from Harry Potter that's played by a really awesome actor,
Oh, I love that actor.
Jason Isaacs,
Yep.
which as a kid, I remember when I'd always see him and be like, "He needs to be James Bond. Like, that guy needs to
Right?
be James Bond."
I
Right?
I think if they ever did a documentary about Timothy Dalton, then
Oh,
Jason Isaacs should play Timothy Dalton as James Bond.
there you
Get
go. I
real
love
meta with it.
dude, dude, exactly. Because Timothy Dalton is my favorite James Bond.
Same here. Look at
Yep.
that. See, we learn something new about each other each week where it's like, man, we really are meant to do this show together.
And would you agree, and I agree with that, but would you agree that Timothy Dalton's movies maybe have not been the best, but he elevated them, although they were still better than the cornier ones with Roger Moore.
Yeah, I would agree.
Would
So
you agree?
I think
Yeah.
that Timothy Dalton, despite not having the best Bond stories, the best movies, he was still the best Bond.
Yeah.
And so if you drop Timothy Dalton and I'd put him up against I was about to say Clooney, no, I said Connery. You could put
Oh,
him
yeah.
up against Connery in any of the Bond movies that he did, and I think it would be a different performance, obviously, but I think that he'd nail it.
And he was originally gonna be in Goldeneye, which I think Pierce Brosnan did great in that anyway, but Timothy Dalton, I mean, they kinda have the same energy in a way.
Yeah, yeah. They're a
I
little bit more
although
posh, a little bit less like rough around the edges, the way that Connery and Moore are.
yeah, and I think though Pierce Brosnan, he when he does the lighthearted goofiness, it's a little goofier than Timothy Dalton would be able to do it, and it wouldn't come off as too goofy. I don't know. I
Yeah.
loved James Bond growing up.
Oh yeah, same
It
here.
was
And I mean, Timothy Dalton was a great villain in
oh,
Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz, yes.
Yes, it was
Yeah,
so funny because I didn't recognize him at first with the
yeah.
mustache, and I told my
Mustache,
little
yeah.
brother, you know what, this guy would make a great Bond villain. He's so good. And my brother said, well, he is James Bond, so
That's awesome. Oh, man.
Oh, but yeah, so we have a exciting topic today to cover. We've got some reference materials. We're going to get deep into some Gundam lore. But before we do that, I think we've got some announcements and some congratulations in order. First of all, if you haven't checked out Adam's videos this week, there was one that dropped this morning. And, congratulations, Adam, on 5,000 subscribers on YouTube for the Gundam Explained channel. Did you ever think we would get here? Like,
I you know, I was really positive, always thinking my purpose with this channel is to make it grow and be big and be a Gundam, like, main source, and it's still going in that direction, but, like, living it at 5,000, even though that's, still low compared to what people use for a living, I guess, off YouTube, it's still telling me there is more. There's more to come. Like, the
yeah.
fact that I could get to 5,000 just is like I always wanted to do that with my gaming channel, and it never happened. It's just I know I have a bigger audience that I can just start talking to, it
Yeah,
feels good.
and it's a great group of people. I can
Yeah.
say this without using the horrible C word that you all know I hate so much.
Oh.
We're just friends. We're just friends that enjoy Gundam together,
Yeah.
and we don't always agree, but we certainly support each other and kind of have this just awesome relationship of sharing Gunpla and anime and all of these different things that we can partake in together. So
Yeah.
yeah, congratulations on that, and onward and upward. Let's continue to see the Gundam Explained community grow. Oh, I
Yeah.
said it.
Well, no, it's cool.
Take a
And,
shot.
big thanks to your channel too, and you in general, like, being able to do a live show with you every week is not only is it fun, but I learn a lot based on your specific expertise, and it also teaches me, it's more of being on stream in different contexts, and it's a great experience.
Yeah.
So Thank you a lot, really.
Likewise, not likewise. I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you
That's
for
cool.
having me aboard.
Oh, yeah.
Um, as well, I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends here at Zieg New York. Big congratulations are in order to them as well for getting a partnership with Galeri airbrushes. Which, let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up a screen share here just for the moment because I want to share with you guys their website. Super clean looking. You guys know me, I'm a terrible airbrush artist in general, but I'm looking at this and I've never tried one of the trigger style airbrush handles. I've always used the kind of you know what it is,
Yeah.
the
The
kind of,
press down at the top, yeah.
right, I don't even know what to describe that as. But
Yeah.
suffice to say, I know a lot of the professionals out there swear by those and suggest that that grip is better. But yeah, I start getting the carpal tunnel. And I start having the claw. So no, I definitely want to try out one of these trigger style airbrushes. So I might pull the trigger on one of them.
I see
Pun
what you did
intended. Might pull the
there.
trigger on one of them this month. So yeah, massive
Yeah.
congratulations to Zeonic Shadow and Zieg New York for getting this partnership. There is a link down in the description below if you want to check out some of these Galeri products. They are like quality stuff as opposed to, the like I'm not going to name any names, but sort of the kits that you can get on Amazon.
Right, yeah. I know
Um
what you mean. I've learned too, you need to get quality stuff. That and it makes it just helps, not that it's easier, but there's more, when you have a quality product, it just kind of it's intuitive, I
yeah,
guess.
exactly. I think that we all agree that a craftsman is not defined by their tools, but having good tools helps for sure.
It yeah.
So yeah, I did want to have that quick announcement, but before we hop into the topic improper, we've got some announcements. Obviously, being the first of the month, the Midnight Hatter Patreon perks went out this morning. Hopefully, you guys saw those as well. So we've got, it's a little one-page adventure for Gundam 5e. It's less structured than some of the adventures I've written in the past that are kind of strictly defined and they have stat blocks for all the enemies. This is more of like an adventure primer, which I think is cool. And if you guys like it, check it out on Patreon and let me know if that's the style you want or if you want more of that structured, beat by beat description of what your adventure should look like.
Mm.
And then also for the Principality of Polygons tier, we've got, now this is the prototype that I showed off in a YouTube short on Wednesday? Monday. Today's
Yeah.
Wednesday. This is a 1/1700 scale Musai battleship. I'm particularly proud of the fact that the Komusai can undock from the
I
front
know.
and, turn over and fly. Now, I have made some improvements to the model that is available on Patreon, and it has a few Zakus that come with it. So, you can kind of structure. I might have to do like a little fleet diorama. I say
Yeah.
this. I say this with everything I do. I'm like, oh, I need to make a diorama of this.
But say, put it out there, and let's
Yeah,
see if
just
it happens, because
manifest it into the universe.
I'm right there with you. If there were more ship stuff available through Bandai for Gundam, I would be collecting all the different types of ships.
Yeah,
Now, they do have some things you could buy, but I feel like they're overpriced. Like, I think it's the Mega House, and they're only about this big, but they're like $70, and
exactly.
it's
And
like,
so that's what I'm hoping is, because I
yeah,
know a lot of people will go out and buy things. Like I have the 1/1700 scale Argama,
yeah,
and I gifted the 1/1700 scale Albion to Ultronimus, friend of the channel, and they are, they're cool, but like, for if I wanted to have like three Musai closing in on the Argama, I'm not gonna spend $300 on just Musai's. So,
yeah. Because I would love to recreate those scenes from like Origin, especially
oh yeah,
where it was like almost like pre-mobile suit, almost, but Xeon had them, because that's what I would do with my Star Wars, especially like the Micro Machine Star Wars figures
and
or
Micro Machine. I
things.
haven't
Yeah,
heard that in
yeah.
decades.
I love those. I had so many Micro Machines of Star Wars, and there was a time in the '90s during Desert Storm, where I was like real fascinated by all those military vehicles, and so I,
Definitely. And I think that that leans into why we enjoy Gundam in the first place
yeah.
is, the fleet battles and like the mass kind of combat,
And
you
it's
know,
not based on real
right?
conflict.
Nobody's actually getting hurt.
Yeah.
No mobile suits were harmed in the filming of this anime.
Yeah, yeah, if they just had stuff like that for Gundam, man, I would be, And I would probably even be way more open to getting stuff from the AUs because I think AUs have some awesome ship designs too that I don't,
The
you know.
Dominion and the Archangel are both
Yeah.
really sweet ships, like, I have to
Yeah.
admit.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so yeah, that said, I encountered an issue when I was making these. And it wasn't in the production of them because obviously now that the production has been tightened up, I've got nice smooth like zero seam lines. Um, but the issue that I had is that my 1/1700th scale mobile suits don't actually fit in the hangar bay that I put in the back of the ship. So I thought to myself, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should do some research and see if I got the measurements off. Like maybe I did my conversions wrong. And no, this actually is a common issue. In fact, I discovered an article that I actually linked on Patreon, and I have a link down in the description below to it as well, from Mark Simmons, who is an excellent Gundam resource. Adam, you shared his you shared his website
Yeah.
with me for some Zeta content, and we've gone over some of his translations in the past. He did a whole write up on the discrepancy of the scale of the Musai and its hangars. So we're going to just take a look through that. It's got some sweet little illustrations, and we can talk about like what it means and space noid design aesthetics. I thought it'd be a fun little conversation. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, anytime we can, as much as we talk about the lore and the world building of Gundam, getting specifically into the ships is something I don't think we've done much of.
No, no, and I
Yeah.
knew that you'd be into it, Adam,
Yeah.
being a fleet and ships guy.
Yep. Definitely.
So let me pull up the screen share here so we can see what we're looking at. So this is a column that he wrote, I'm not sure even how many years ago it is, but he did some illustrations here of the Musai class, which, um, yeah, as we can see here, I'll zoom in on this if I can. There we go. So we've got an illustration here of the Musai with a Zaku 2 for scale, and even here you can see that the hangar, which is located in the rear, it's like that hexagon on the back of the ship. That hangar is too short for a Zaku to stand upright in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like it reminded me when I was playing that RoboCop game yesterday.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
when I was in the arcade, the popcorn kernels that they have laying around look too big to be, but it's like, you know what? That is just to give off the it's like an interpretation of creating that scene, and I think that's kind of what is going on here.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely some of that going on. And one of the things I love about Mark Simmons is that he actually cites his sources as opposed to the wiki, which tends to just say things and then it's like, oh well, it was in
Oh,
there somewhere. So one of the things that he brought up is that the TV series actually specifically says that the Musai can hold at least 5 mobile suits, and I covered this actually when I did my first dissecting Gundam episode because Shar himself tells Dozil, I've lost 3 Zaku's. I've only got 2 left. And he has I believe it's called the Falmer or the Falmel, that is the name of his ship. So we know that the Musai can hold at least 5. Canonically, it's supposed to hold 6 mobile suits, 4 in the hangar and 2 in the Komusai underneath. We can actually scroll down here and see a visual representation of that. Now, obviously, this is way kind of out of scale, or maybe it's just like, I'm not sure exactly what the representation is supposed to be
yeah.
here. This is an artist's conception of the Musai hangar deck with launch catapult, shamelessly borrowed from the 0083 Musai variant, which the
Mm,
0083 one might have actually been designed more specifically for mobile suits, considering that it was so much later and mobile
yeah,
suits had become standard weaponry by then.
that's a good point.
So this is a very cool image because it's supposed to represent, what the Komusai looks like when it's deploying its mobile suits. And one of the things that's very interesting about that sort of space noid architecture that I mentioned is the Komusai shuttle actually docks, at the front of the Musai, but it is upside down when it is docked. So that top hatch is where the mobile suits would come out if the shuttle entered the atmosphere, landed on Earth, the fins actually go up. And so that's kind of part of where we're getting into because I think And, I'm sure if Talos is in the chat, he'll bring this up because I know that you and Talos like Unicorn more than I do. But I do recall there was a conversation between the Sleeves and the Londo Bell unit when the Sleeves were occupying the Nahel Argama, and they made a comment about how the Federation has all their mobile suits standing upright, which they thought was like weighed down by gravity. They were like, this thinking is so foreign to
Yeah.
us space noids.
Yeah, that is kinda cool, because that, again, is a small detail that, like, has always existed, never had to have been explained, but it's like, if someone was to kinda scrutinize what the art is representing, you could be like, "Well, technically, that would make sense." You
Yeah.
know? I love that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for things to be oriented in a particular way in space when there's no up or down to be defined. So it's like,
It's like Tetris coming from all directions, and they're just getting it to fit together however it needs to,
yeah, it's
because
like
there's no
2001: A
orientation.
Space Odyssey, right?
Oh, yeah. That's
That
right.
that was one of those realistic interpretations of what life in space could be like. And so yeah, it's interesting to me that they chose to mount their shuttle upside down, technically. And so the way that it's theorized that the mobile suits are stored in the Musai hangar is that they are basically fixed to the walls because there's no
Yeah.
gravity in the hangar bay. They just like lay flat on the walls and just float out of the back.
Yeah, and that would make sense, especially if you're thinking of contact points for a pilot to get to their suit. It seems like they're just laid against surfaces no matter what the surface. And you see on the Federation side a lot when a pilot's in a hangar, they're having to, like, if it's in a low gravity situation, they're having to launch themselves and try to make it,
Yeah,
because it's just standing. So there's really only one contact point, but they're just trying to come at it from whatever angle. It's
exactly.
interesting stuff. Yeah.
And theoretically, you could even fit more mobile suits in a hangar if you're stacking them in different
Yeah.
orientations, right? Like if you are thinking, I guess what what should we call this? Like if thinking two dimensionally, yeah, I feel like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. You're not thinking fourth dimensionally, Marty. Um, so if your thinking is weighed down by gravity,
Yeah.
then you only have
Old
one
type
plane
thinking.
in which to store your cargo. But if you're thinking in three dimensions, all of a sudden you can store cargo and even personnel all over.
And what's interesting about that, and I want to say this happened, where a ship landed, a Xeon ship that had, and I'm thinking, is it Shara soon? I don't know, where it lands, and then she has to get out of the mobile suit, but it's laying down. And it might have been another character, and it had to like start getting itself up because it was I don't know where I saw that. I just remember like a character had to quickly get away from somewhere, but their mobile suit was docked laying down in gravity,
Interesting.
and they had to get it up. Whereas if if the Federation's always deploying under gravity, they're going to be in the best situation. Uh,
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
it, it, that's interesting to consider. I wonder when they're considering these battles and they're deploying ships. They're like, I wonder if they're thinking, okay, let's try to get the enemy here so our battlefield is under gravity. Well, let's try to have
exactly.
the battle here so we're not under gravity when we're fighting. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a tactical advantage to be had by battleships that that can operate in both low and no gravity situations, and it's very telling when you think about how many Federation ships can operate, either through you know, Minovsky flight
oh,
systems,
yeah,
um, in both atmospheric and space combat. You know, imagine because the Musai only operates in space. It can't enter the atmosphere. That's why it has the Komusai capsule to deploy down to Earth. So imagine if your mobile suits are docked to the walls of your spaceship, and then you come down to Earth and enter the Earth's atmosphere, and then you're subject to Earth's gravity. All those Zaku's that are just propped up against the wall are going to come crashing down.
yeah.
And even if you had them secured to the walls, then how are you going to get them down without like they're just going to drop? you
Yeah,
know?
that would be an advantage for or a disadvantage depending on what side you are, and, like, that's just another thing to, yeah, keep in mind. Um,
Yeah. So it's very, very cool that that's one of these details that is brought up. Um, so let's see. Just reading here, the Musai's main hangar houses 3 mobile suits in active service, and the Komusai shuttle can store up to 2 spare Zakus for use in emergencies. Which, if you look at the way that the panel opens on the Komusai, it would be difficult to deploy those in space if the Komusai is still docked. Like, the Komusai still has to come out a little bit in order to open up and release
Oh,
mobile
yeah.
suits. So that's another,
Interesting.
maybe it's a flawed design there. Um, but yeah, so thus I've added a top hatch which allows access to the Komusai's cargo once the shuttle has been slid slightly forward on its launch track. A similar top hatch can be seen in the Komusai, which picks up the stolen GPO-2A in Gundam 0083. So,
So I'd never really looked at this, but I wonder how it would fit, or if they would have to have one side is yeah, because if you scroll back up to that picture
oh
of the
yeah,
Komusai, and it kinda looks like it has a divider.
it does.
So, like, if the mobile suit was any bigger than what was supposed to be standard in there, like a Zaku 2, I would the GPO-2A would be one that would have trouble fitting. So I wonder if they had a special Komusai variant, or they could make it work. Uh,
I'm glad you mentioned that because he brings that up in the next sentence here, talking
oh,
about the Rick Dom. So yeah, it works out pretty well for the classic Zaku 2, but what about the MSR-09 Rick Dom, the successor as Xeon's standard space mobile suit? It is far bulkier, as the picture here in scale with the Zaku above should indicate. Measurements from the model kits indicate that the Rick Dom is roughly 12 meters across from the shoulders and 10 meters front to back, which means there's no way we can fit 3 of them into the itty bitty hangar deck of the Musai.
ooh, not even
So,
the hanger deck. Yeah.
so yeah, that's probably why they had to deploy different ships. And if you think about what are the 2 ships at Abaku, the Dolos and Dawala? I think Dolos and Dawala
Yeah,
are
sounds
the
familiar, but I
2 sort of
mm,
cargo ships that are deployed to send out the Rick Doms. Because if you think about it, let's see, just gonna read down here. Yeah, he's got a little table here that shows the different sort of carrying capacities of Musai's. So the standard 3 turret
mm,
version can hold 3 standard MS and 2 standard MS in the Komusai for a total capacity of 5 mobile suits. The 2 turret Musai, which has, so the hangar bay, like if we were to look at this example, they reduce 1 turret in order to make the hangar deeper and cut into the Musai, a little further in, and then they only have 2 turrets mounted instead of 3. That allows them to store 2 heavy mobile suits, such as the Rick Dom or the GP-02A. Um, and the Komusai can only hold 1 because it's too wide to fit in one of those slots. So, how many Komusais do you think they had to retrofit and pull that divider out
yeah.
in order to fit in the bigger mobile suits? And so
Yeah,
that
that
means that, you know, the carrying capacity of mobile suits for the Musais was severely limited down to just 3 mobile suits.
yeah, that's pretty crazy to think, like, and I know we're on the topic of the moose side, but was there a larger carrier ever used?
So I want to
Before we
say
get
that,
to, I guess, I think by Neo Xeon, I'm sure that,
yeah,
but
they've kind of corrected that
yeah.
that capacity issue. They started introducing a couple of other battleships. Things like the Endra, I think is a mobile suit carrier first and foremost. And if you notice, a lot of those ships they end up having less gun barrels, less particle cannons, less gun turrets, and things like that because they're focused mainly on deploying
As a
mobile
carrier.
suits.
Yeah.
And even when you look at Federation ships, they have the large tracks for launching mobile suits in order
Yeah,
to
that's right.
intercept. Because with the Musai, it's essentially a cargo ship, so it doesn't have the
Yeah.
ability to launch mobile suits to kind of to meet the enemy before they get to your ship. So by the time the mobile suits are out, your enemy's probably right on top of you.
Well, then, sometimes we see the Federation ships where GMs are just standing on them, around them. Is
Yeah.
that is that for protective services, or is that their way of storing them in space?
Well, so the Salamis and Magellan actually were not designed to carry mobile suits at all. So the way that they would carry GMs in space would be just to stick them on the hull and carry
That
them.
that is
So
neat.
I mean, it's for defensive purposes. I guess you could argue. I would hate to be one of the pilots that has to like leave the ship and go climb into the
Yeah.
mobile suit that's been mounted to the
Wasn't
side.
there a, from one of the video games, wasn't there like an animation where they were trying to load into their mobile suit as fast as possible, and it was, like, attached to the side?
Yeah, I think
Was that Solomon, like, right before the battle or the beginning of the Battle of Solomon? Or,
that had to be.
yeah, that it's coming to me, like, as you're talking about it, it's reminding me of that. Yeah, I wanna say, yeah, because that's, yeah, what you're kinda saying. It's kinda scary, like, there's a battle going on, you have to get out and get into your mobile suit,
Right.
like,
And any, rogue explosion could send you flying into deep space. And
yeah, that's pretty good.
so yeah, it's just like I said, these are fascinating details that were kind of built into the story even as early as the original series, and they really highlight the differences between the two cultures of Spacenoid and Earthnoid schools of thought.
It's amazing. The detail is amazing. I cannot, like, it's hard for me to comprehend the collaboration that had to occur and the agreeing that had to occur all throughout.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I wanted to hop into the footnotes because it does, you know, go into a little bit of that. Like I mentioned in Gundam Episode 2, Char
Mm.
Aznavour comments that he lost 3 Zakus during his current mission and he still has 2 left. So that was which is interesting because does that mean that his red Zaku was in the Komusai? Because theoretically he would have deployed the mobile suits from the hangar first
Yeah.
prior to deploying one from the Komusai. So if we have Denim, Jean, and who was the third pilot that was killed by Amuro?
On any other day, I could tell you that.
I'm sure we could Google it, but
Yeah.
suffice to say, that's an interesting note because that means that Char would have had to deploy from the Komusai, which, as we've established, would have been a dangerous operation to pull.
But wait a minute. I just realized the names Denim and Jean.
Now,
I
those
just
are Gundam names if you've ever
but, like, what's the other one? Pants? Slender.
corduroy. Um,
Slender, right?
yep, Slender. That was the third one.
So, jean, like jeans,
Yep,
denim, jeans, and then slender fit. I don't know. I'm just now.
slender denim jeans. That's no, that's hilarious. So then, where does Crown fit in?
Yeah.
um, yeah, that is definitely an interesting way. I think what is it that Tomino said when he just started introducing names, just trying to get something censored, and
Oh,
he
yeah, exactly. He was trying to make it as weird, obscure as possible so that they would be like, "Nope, change it." And they never did. So it's like, "Okay."
all right, we're gonna go for it. Yeah, guys, spam the chat with every other material that you can make pants out of, and we're just
Khaki.
gonna call those Xeon pilots.
There you go. That's a new one now.
So in the second footnote, we see Mobile Suit Gundam Episode 7. We see 2 mobile suit bays on the Komusai underside. So Char actually did have a plan for rescuing his wingman during reentry.
Wait,
Maybe.
2 mobile suit bays?
So I think what he's referring to are those two, like you said, there's a partition in the
Oh,
hangar
okay.
of the Komusai. So theoretically, he could have saved Crown on reentry because I think that's what he's suggesting here is that when Crown was falling, but
Oh.
I don't know,
It
it's
might have took too long, but I see what you're saying. It's almost like there could have been an attempt to save him, but
yeah.
it probably still wouldn't have worked.
And I think I commented this in my episode of Dissecting Gundam on the death of Crown. is there's a moment here, and I recorded myself saying it. It's like, wow, Char actually does care about his men, because he's talking to Crown as he's falling, and he's like, hey, your death won't be in vain. We'll avenge you, Crown. I'm so sorry. Yada yada yada. And I was like, oh, he really is a compassionate leader. And then the very next line after Crown dies is when Dren turns to Char and he's like, wait, you were using Crown to throw Amuro off course so that they would land in Zeon territory instead of going to Jaburo, weren't you? And he's like, oh, if we couldn't kill him up here, we have to kill him down there, so maybe I'm going to deliver him to Garma. War is a cruel business. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to delete that part of my my
Yeah.
analysis, because in truth, Char really is a shrewd and cunning guy. He did not care
No,
about Crown.
but I think he cares up until the point to get the mission done.
Yeah.
I think Char would still care. It's just that he knows, okay, I'm going to have him sacrifice. This is a good point. If he sacrifices himself, this will get us ahead in the overall big picture.
And, you and I definitely speak a lot about Char's sort of whiplash character development between Zeta and Char's counterattack.
Mhm.
This that instance where he lets Crown die, kind of, it's like, wait a second, maybe Char's counterattack, Char isn't, too far from the kind of person he is in general. If he's willing to, sacrifice someone that he's actually served with, a friend, you know.
Well, and it makes me. I'm glad you're bringing this up because it makes me think after the death of Lala and meeting Amuro, that might have given him a different perspective on the possibilities. But then it just didn't turn out after Zeta, and then he's just like, "Fuck it, I'm going back." So I think there's a way we can kind of connect Char's motivations.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
all based on the fact that the Komusai has two mobile suit.
yeah. I love that. That's where it came from. Yeah.
So number three footnote is examples of Xeon ships which store their mobile suits horizontally include the Musai, the variant from 0083, because that's one that we actually do see mobile suits in. The Tive class Graf Zeppelin in 0080, which I think is actually a
Mm.
mistranslation of Shive, like that's that red mobile suit carrier that actually technically the Shive, I want to say, came out before the Musai. It was like a troop transport that Xeon had, but the Graf Zeppelin
Mm.
was obviously one that was designed to carry mobile suits, and they do carry mobile suits, on their
Yeah.
sides. And the Papua class supply ship in Mobile Suit Gundam. Now, I don't remember much about the Papua, but uh,
Yeah, I don't either. Isn't that the
oh,
colony, the asteroid base
um,
in Unicorn? Or am I thinking of something else?
that's a Palau.
Oh,
The
thank you.
Papua. Now I'm remembering. Papua is the ship that what's the Xeon officer's name who pilots the Zaku 1 and gets killed by Amuro in, I think, episode 2 or 3 of Mobile Suit Gundam. Um, he is the
I
one
don't
that
remember.
resupplies Char's ship. So the Papua is basically like a box that holds
Oh,
mobile suits and cargo. And I do remember when he got in his Zaku 1 and he just starts pushing the Zakus into space and like basically throwing them at the Musai, because that was when Amuro and Ryu had interrupted their resupply operation. It was in
ah.
the episode Vote to Attack, which
So that's their way of launching
yeah,
their
that's you
mobile
get
suits.
one guy in a suit and you throw the other guy in a suit. Which is it's a classic Xeon maneuver because it reminds me of that in the Battle of Abawaku when you have the Zaku that like pushing the other Zaku out and starts like
Yep,
pointing.
that's
I
right.
love that
Yeah.
gif. So the obvious, this is footnote 4. One obvious example is the Zanzibar class mobile cruiser seen in Mobile Suit Gundam and Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 and Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn, because the Zanzibar is the Granciere.
Mhm.
The Guazine class battleship, by some accounts, was also designed to fly in Earth's atmosphere, but proved incapable of surviving re-entry. So Footnote 4 seems to talk about, um, you know,
Wait, it says incapable of reentry, so it's not supposed to do interplanetary, and that's why the unicorn, I guess, pulled it up out of the atmosphere?
I think so. I guess so. So
Oh.
it can travel under Earth's gravity, but
It's too much for it to, like, go between the atmosphere and s or wherever that. Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
that was something we just we talked about earlier was the tactical advantage of operating under Earth's gravity. The
Yeah.
known exceptions are either vessels designed for use in Earth's gravity or antique ships like the Chivet, which store their mobile suits in a glorified cargo bay rather than having dedicated living facilities. Yeah,
Okay.
interesting stuff. So then
Yeah.
let's take a look at some of these other footnotes and see what other sources we have for this information. Footnote 5 in Mobile Suit Gundam Episode 2, when Char's unmanned Zaku is launched by catapult from the hangar of the Musai, it appears to be lying face down on the hangar floor. The same is true of the replacement Zakus deployed by a Papua class ship in the following episode. I've turned them face up in my design so that the pilots can get in. Now, you mentioned this with Shara, right? So
Yeah. With
they
and I
they store the mobile suits face down, which means that you can't get into them.
that is interesting thing, especially because the cockpit doesn't necessarily open outward. It slide?
Yeah, I think it
So
slides up, man.
so I wonder if they could potentially get in due to the curves, but I guess they're saying no. They would
Yeah,
have to be on their back.
that's interesting. And I think that by 0088, you start to see more of the Federation style cockpit hatch that opens out as opposed to
Yeah,
sliding.
that's right. Yeah, that's true. That seems to end up being common anyway, which interesting that that was adopted. But then we get weird things, like the Sosby, how that has its own cockpit thing anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I in going back and reviewing a lot of Zeta Gundam, I totally forgot that the Rictius had its cockpit in the head as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
one of those ones that like has a side, and again, that makes me wonder because that would be absolutely stupid to use in under gravity because then you would have to climb all the way up the mobile suit instead of just up to the chest or waist area in order to
Yeah.
board it. So that's definitely a design that has space noids in mind. Like,
Yeah, it makes me think. I want like I would think a practical way of landing a mobile suit would be like on its knees almost, like where its hands are the landing gear, the hands and the knees are the landing gear. So that way there's less length of like a rope or something coming out of the cockpit.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes you wonder why there aren't more, you know, deployable ladders or something.
Yeah,
I mean, I
just
guess
built
in
in.
8th MS team we
Yeah.
see that zip line that Norris used to
Yeah.
board the goof. So I don't know. It's interesting. The idea of boarding a mobile suit is
Well, it's GBO2. All you have to do is hold down, the button, and then all of a sudden you're immediately right going in.
exactly. Can you imagine how frustrating GBO2 would be if you had to like steer the pilot to the exact
Yeah.
spot that you need to board the
And then
mobile
press a
suit?
button to, like, open it or release a ladder that you then have to, like, climb, and it takes, like, 30 seconds.
It'd be like defusing a bomb where you have to hold down the square
Oh,
button and you're
yeah.
like
That's true, you're seeing the animation go while you're holding down the button, and that's interesting,
and
actually.
then you can interrupt it.
I think that could work in another Gundam game. That's a neat little mechanic.
It's an unfortunate mechanic for
It's
pilots, but
unfortunate, yeah.
let's see. We can think of one exception: the force which Cecilia Zabi leads through the Federation lines in Mobile Suit Gundam Episode 41 or 40 in the U.S. release because we lost an episode due to Doan's Island.
Yeah.
Appears to include a few three-turret Musai cruisers, though the animation is somewhat inconsistent on this point. Well,
Hmm.
inconsistent animation in a Gundam series, that is just preposterous, and I'm
What
offended that you would even say that.
but that's an interesting thing, and we were talking about this in my Discord the other day, like, Sometimes there's some noticeable inconsistencies, but then if you were to ask what the details were, overall, everything's consistent. There's just sometimes minor things that for whatever reason, and sometimes it's technical. Like if there is a animation of a Musai and it's the incorrect one, that's usually not because they messed up the world building. It's just someone that was tasked with that, maybe through people got the wrong cell that they had to copy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, we're talking about a series from the 70s where recycling animation cells was very common. So it's like
Yeah.
if you were to just say, "Hey, I need a whole fleet of Musais," and you're a overworked animator, you're probably going to grab some cells from previous episodes and mix them together. And honestly, you know, maybe you'd find some inconsistencies, but the idea that all of the Musais at Abaoku would be the updated ones with two turrets and a larger hangar. I mean, you would probably see some three turret ones with the
Yeah.
smaller hangar. Um,
They'd by that point, yeah, they would probably have a mix
yeah,
because they had to get what they can there.
exactly.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff. You
Mhm.
know, and again, it's one of those things where you could chalk these things up to, like you said, animation inconsistency. You know, yeah, we see issues of scale all the time, right? Like everyone's seen those like famous scenes of the Gundam all stretched out and, you know, ridiculous looking with foreshortening and stuff like that. But
Right
I
on.
don't think that this is one of those cases. I think that the
Yeah.
Musai was designed with space noid what's the word that I'm
Usability,
looking for? Space noid. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
functionality. I know what
Yeah.
you mean. I don't know the word either, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
Space noid design you know
because
theory.
it's from that perspective, and I like that.
Yeah,
Something I've never really considered. Um,
exactly. And again, it's one of those things that gets called out explicitly in Gundam Unicorn, but it's kind of just implied in the original series. And
yeah,
so, you know, again, as much as I dislike Unicorn, I do have to admit that it is a love letter to the Gundam franchise. It does
you'll come around. You'll come around.
you know, it's only been like 10, 15 years. We'll just give it another 30 and he'll fall in love with it. Um so yeah, and that's one of the things that I had intended to release both the Musai and the Salamis today as, you know, like, hey, here's your fleet 2 pack. But I decided to concentrate on making a, you know, world accurate Musai and including a few Zakus to store it with it. So, you know, that's why, is because in my research and as I was developing this, I was like, man, the Musai is actually a very interesting ship.
Well, okay, so then now that we've figured this out, what are your thoughts on if you were to make a diorama, would you try to scale up the Musai? Would you try to scale down the mobile suits and maybe make them where they are less detailed and more of a solid without any like appendages really sticking out? They look like they're in their stored state, maybe. Or it's a single sculpted piece of three.
Yeah, I mean, that would actually be kind of a neat idea, would be to kind of have just, you know, static, like awkward posed Zakus that you could stick on the inside there. I
Yeah.
did include instructions on the download link to, if you want to scale the mobile suits or the
Oh,
Musai to allow them to fit in and out of the hangar. It's a 30% difference. So you can
okay.
either scale the mobile suit down 30% or you can scale the Musai up 30%, which I personally opt towards scaling the Musai up 30%. And the reason for that is, like I said, I do have the EX model of the Argama and the Albion, and I've held up my, you know, 1/1700th scale 3D prints to those ships, and they're a little small. Like
Oh, interesting.
even considering that the Argama is a larger ship,
Yeah.
the catapult on the 1/1700th scale Argama model kit is way too big for like a 1/1700th scale mobile suit. So I would rather scale the ship up and have it be a little bit more consistent with the size of the other ships.
Okay.
Now that said, there are other ships that I've been trying to print, such as the Guadin. the gear, not gear Doga, Dogos gear.
Man, those
uh,
names.
so those are the Guadin. Obviously, is Haman Karn's ship. It's actually one of, if not the largest ship in Gundam. The
Oh,
Guadin
really?
and the Dogos gear. The Dogos gear is um as of Zeta. That's Bascom's ship. As of Zeta, it's the largest ship, but the General Revel, which is a Dogos gear class ship, is actually the largest ship in Mobile Suit Gundam. But that's not till
Oh.
Unicorn. So
Ah, okay. So Haman Karn had the biggest ship, and do you think that was because there was not really a I don't know, was she like using her power for that? Was it more of she was treating that as her home base since they were kind of scattered, you know?
that's a good question. It obviously is the Neo Zeon flagship, so it would have to be kind of impressive and
Yeah, that's true. I
you
like that
like
answer actually.
an
Kind of like a
imposing
superstar
force.
destroyer,
Yeah,
you know. Yeah.
exactly right. Um, so yeah, I think that there's definitely a little bit of wow factor involved. But yeah, to your point, if you had to choose and you had the limited resources of Axis Xeon, like Haman did, would you create fleet of smaller carriers, or would you create one massive warship and just stock it with mobile suits?
Yeah, and I wonder if there was consideration about the infighting with Earth Federation when making manufacturing these. Because I felt like in a way Haman was kind of just watching, in a way, letting Titans and AU kind of fight it out. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
because I just remember she reminds me of like a fly. You know, when they're in the colony laser, she's like, "Zzz, "Shark, come with me," while he's like fighting Paptimus. Shark, shark.
Senpai noticed me.
Yeah.
Um, well, yeah, and it's very interesting because at the end of Stardust Memory 0083, we see Haman like basically watching what's going on with with the birth of the Titans, and she could have gotten involved, but said,
Yeah.
I think we'll.
Yeah, let them fight it out. Like that's a really cool story and tactic, you know, to see go on like internal conflict. It's almost like when people have internal conflict, but we're seeing it on a kind of a state scale, you know, like
Like a macro.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think that there's definitely a bit of that. What's the line from Godzilla? Let them fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that obviously Axis Xeon took advantage of that, took advantage of the infighting with the Federation, and I think that it bought her time to develop those ships because I don't think that the Endra, the Sandra, and the Mindra were built before the Guadin.
Nina, the Pita, and the Santa Maria, or something like that.
That's the
That's
ones.
sounded like what you were saying.
I know. See, and we talk about how silly some of the names are in Gundam, and it's like those are Glemmy's ships, right? The
Yeah.
Nina Pinta Santa Maria. I think what is it? 0042. Um, Degwin Zabi sailed the ocean
Oh,
blue, something like that.
yeah. That's pretty good.
uh, but yeah, so I really
Yeah.
do like this resource, Mark Simmons, ultimatemark.com. If you guys
Yeah.
have not checked it out yet, he's got tons of translated interviews. And again, I love that he provides these footnotes that, you can go back and see like, oh, this is the episode where that is shown or where that's referenced. Um, I think that that's important because, you and I, Adam, we've taken on this really intense responsibility for fighting Gundam disinformation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's funny how I think that's kind of helped fuel some of my videos because when I was looking up information, I would later come to find out, oh, that's actually incorrect. That's wrong. That was just something someone said, and so yeah, being able to make videos to cover these things, and a lot of times, I'll make a video on something, and by the end, I will kind of say, it's still up in the air, but this is what this says. And even in the comments, where people will be like, "Well, it is this," and I'm like, "Well, no, but the point of my video is saying we don't know."
Right. Yeah, one of my favorite things is like when I have done some fan theory videos in the past, I get people saying like, "Well, in Super Robot Wars, Camille said this," and I'm like, "Well, Camille wasn't." in Super Robot Wars. That's a video game that, you know. I don't remember Gaio Gaigar being in Gundam, so
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Or it reminds me of when we're using the AI to kinda answer questions,
oh
and it would,
yeah.
like, half get it right, and then it will kinda say something that's like, "Well, I don't know about that." Yeah.
Yeah, what color is Haman's hair again?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was catfished, I swear.
But yeah, I mean, that's about it that I have today for discussing the Musai. And again, you know, congratulations, Adam, on 5,000 subs on YouTube.
Thank
I'm
you.
right behind you at
Heck
3,600 as of
yeah.
yesterday. That was a big milestone for me. I'm probably going to do another fun giveaway at 4,000. So tell your friends about Adam and I's show because
Yeah, let's actually because I'm gonna do a giveaway for 5,000.
very nice.
I Ashley, the social media personnel I have, has something badass she wants to give away to people, and it's like, oh my god, yes. So I'll announce that soon, and then what I'll do is also be like, and then stay tuned for the next giveaway, Midnight Hatters channel. So
Hey,
yeah,
appreciate it. But yeah,
that'd be cool.
like I said, onward and upward. Let's continue to kind of grow these fun little communities around Gundam and Gunpla that
Mhm.
hopefully are something different. I know
Yeah,
that there's, and we talk about this a lot in terms of Gundam video games, right? Like there's something out there for everybody. You
yeah,
don't have to. You are not by law required to enjoy every piece of Gundam media that comes out here. I am
yeah.
here to tell you that it's okay. You can like some stuff and dislike other stuff.
Yep.
If you like the
That's
stuff that Adam and I like, then you're always welcome here.
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Always something.
Yeah, but if you didn't check out Adam's lore video from this
Thank
morning,
you.
I'm actually going to go watch it here after the stream because
Sweet.
I've had a busy morning working,
Cool.
but
Yeah, it's a
I always
nice
like to have something
quick.
on in the background while and hopefully this
Yeah,
has been, if you are at
that's
work currently, if you enjoyed this discussion in the background of your workday, you know, subscribe and hang out with us every week.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. I love making this content because yeah, people can listen while they're working. Because 'cause I'm always doing that. I'm always listening to podcasts and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that scene from Tommy Boy where Dan Aykroyd says, I make car parts for the American working man because that's what I am and that's who I care about. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I make podcasts for guys that listen to podcasts during their workday because that's who I
Yep.
am. That's who I care
Or
about.
working in the yard. I'll do that too on a Saturday. What podcast can I listen to while I'm cleaning the backyard? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to do something to drown out the noise.
Yeah.
So very cool. Now, schedule wise has been a little funny because of, my work schedule and your work schedule.
Yeah.
Are we doing a Gundam Explained show tomorrow?
Yeah, maybe okay, so this is maybe we can talk about this real quick. D What works for you? Because I didn't mind that Friday time, but also Thursday can
Yeah.
still work. What works for you? Because I think you have more you have to deal with.
Yeah, dad responsibilities are always tricky. So I do think that I would be fine anytime tomorrow. I can double check with you and get back with you, but yeah, I mean, if because we're doing evening streams now,
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
the way to go. So yeah, I think that if we do a little later in the evening, I'm always available. So
Cool, yeah, we can plan for tomorrow evening, kinda we
yeah,
did the
let's
week
make it
before
happen.
last. Yeah.
So that that's cool. We provide a little bit of variation for everybody. If you can hang out during the day, then tune into Midnight Hatter on Wednesday, and if you can do the evening thing, hang out
Yeah?
with Gundam Explained Thursday, Friday, depending on how we feel about things.
Yeah. No, but yeah, so tomorrow evening.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that'll be it then. Yeah.
Well, cheers again. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for keeping the chat lively. I'm gonna need to go back and review some of these pants materials that we need to name some. I might commission an artist to put together something. I'll post it on Discord
Oh, yeah.
later.
And someone
All
in
of these.
chat put yoga, and I was like, "That's a good name
Yeah,
for a character, yoga?
that
Yoga
is.
pants."
So yeah, we'll have some fun NPC pilots to choose from. Some NPC Xeon pilots. Am I forgetting anything? I feel like I've touched on everything. I mean, obviously,
I think so.
yeah. Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well,
Yeah, I think
cheers.
we're
Thank you
good.
guys again so much. Thank you, Adam, for
Of
co-hosting with
course.
me. And again, thank you, Zeeg New York and Zeonic Shadow, for all the support for both of our channels. And congratulations on the deal with Galeri. I'm gonna go get myself an airbrush real quick.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you'll have to let us know.
All right. Well, cheers, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.
Yep. See y'all.